Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us again on the channel where we uncover the fascinating, dramatic, and sometimes unbelievable stories behind rare coins that have taken the numismatic world by storm. And today we're diving into one of the most astonishing tales to ever emerge from the realm of American cents, a story that has gripped collectors, sparked heated debates, and fueled searches through jars, drawers, and piggy banks all across the nation. The unbelievable claim that a 1977 mint-mark Lincoln cent sold for a jaw-dropping $13 million, a figure so extraordinary that it instantly raises questions, excitement, curiosity, and of course plenty of skepticism. Yet behind this attention-grabbing number lies a deeper exploration of what truly makes certain coins explode in value. How minting errors can transform a simple penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Why even a coin as common-seeming as a 1977 Lincoln cent can hold mysteries, anomalies, and production quirks that make collectors sit up and take notice, and what kinds of mistakes, mechanical mishaps, metal impurities, striking malfunctions, planchet abnormalities, die deterioration, transitional mix-ups, or even unrecorded mint experiments could hypothetically allow a 1-cent piece to reach values that belong more to legendary artifacts than pocket change. So today we're going to take you on a deep, immersive journey through the world of the 1977 mint mark cent, unpacking how mint marks worked during that era, what kinds of official errors are known for the 1977 issues, what extremely rare possibilities have been theorized by experts, how misunderstandings and myths can arise, and why certain combinations of mistakes, especially if unique or dramatically visible, can propel a coin into the stratosphere of numismatic value. Because while the vast majority of 1977 pennies are worth 1 cent, or maybe a few dollars in high grade, there exist scenarios in numismatic history where a coin becomes valuable not because it was meant to be special, but because something went very wrong during its creation, and collectors know that when it comes to errors, rarity is king, visual impact is queen, and confirmed uniqueness can turn an everyday object into the crown jewel of a world-class collection. So to understand why anyone would claim that a 1977 mint mark penny could be worth $13 million, we need to step back to 1977 itself, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was striking the majority of cents without mint marks, as it had done for decades, producing billions of them with incredible speed, relying on countless working dies that inevitably wore down, cracked, chipped, filled with grease, overpolished, or misaligned, creating minor errors that collectors enjoy but that rarely yield astronomical value. Yet the notion of a 1977 penny crossing into the multimillion-dollar territory would require something dramatically beyond a simple die crack or grease-filled strike. It would require the presence of a mistake so bizarre and so unrepeatable that experts would consider it essentially a one-of-a-kind minting accident, possibly involving a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a bronze cent accidentally struck on a copper-nickel planchet for a foreign coin. Or perhaps a penny mistakenly struck on a 40% silver planchet left over from earlier proof issues, or even an ultra-rare off-metal strike involving an experimental blank the mint never documented. And these illusions aren't entirely fictional, because U.S. mints have historically produced accidental oddities like cents on dime planchets, dimes on copper planchets, quarters on cent planchets, double denominations such as a cent struck over a dime, transitional wrong metal errors such as the famous and extremely valuable 1943 bronze cent or the 1944 steel cent, all of which prove that the mint, despite precision machinery, is far from infallible. Especially during periods of high production, and 1977 was undoubtedly such a period. But to imagine a single 1977 penny commanding a $13 million price tag, we must picture a scenario so unique and so dramatic that it borders on numismatic mythology. For instance, a 1977 cent struck with a massively off-center double strike combined with a mismatched obverse and reverse die set, creating a mule error where the obverse die is from a 1977 penny but the reverse die is from a completely different denomination, something that is almost impossible but not entirely outside the realm of minting accident history, as there have been genuine Neal errors such as the famous Sacagawea dollar with the Washington quarter reverse that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars and remains one of the greatest U.S. coin mistakes. Now imagine that happening with a 1977 cent, but not just any Neal. Imagine an obverse penny die paired with a reverse intended for a foreign contract coin produced by the U.S. Mint during that era, because the Philadelphia Mint did indeed strike coins for foreign countries, and on rare occasions dies or planchets could theoretically be mixed, and if such a combination occurred and somehow escaped detection, it could become the kind of legendary mint error that collectors would fight over, pushing its price to unimaginable levels. Especially if the coin was preserved in an unusually high grade, like MS67 or higher, because high-grade error coins are exponentially more valuable than circulated ones. Another hypothetical scenario for extreme value could involve a double planchet strike where two planchets were fed simultaneously into the striking chamber, causing them to fuse, overlap, or embed into each other, creating an ultra-rare conjoined error with two partial designs, something that has happened on other denominations but remains astronomically rare. And if such an anomaly occurred on a 1977 penny, and was both dramatic and visually stunning, collectors might elevate it to near mythical status. Another possibility that fuels fascination is the idea of a 1977 penny struck on a leftover 95% copper planchet from earlier years, or even a 98% copper or foreign bronze planchet with unusual metallic composition. Because metal composition errors can cause coins to stand out dramatically when weighed or tested, and collectors love such anomalies, especially if the error is the only known example. But the $13 million rumor surrounding the 1977 no mint mark penny also emerges from a broader phenomenon in coin collecting: the tendency for urban legends, misinterpretations, exaggerated YouTube claims, and viral social media posts to spread like wildfire, often creating the impression that ordinary coins are worth unimaginable sums, fueling treasure hunting excitement but also confusion. Yet beneath the exaggeration lies a kernel of truth: that certain errors really can fetch extraordinary amounts, even hundreds of thousands or millions, but only if they tick the boxes of rarity, dramatic visual impact, and historical uniqueness. So in thinking about why someone might believe a 1977 penny hit the $13 million mark, we need to examine the types of errors that genuinely command top-tier prices, such as double denomination strikes, off-metal planchet errors on wrong denomination blanks, proof errors accidentally released into circulation, double-struck coins with full dramatic overlapping designs, mules combining mismatched dies never intended to be paired, broad strikes and saddle strikes produced in freak mechanical misfeeds, uncentered double strikes showing two complete portraits, or coins struck through foreign objects like cloth, tools, washers, or even another coin, each of which could theoretically produce a one-of-a-kind artifact capable of drawing intense collector competition. But the value also depends on authentication, because for a coin to command millions, it must be examined, verified, slabbed, and certified by top-tier grading companies like PCGS or NGC, which document the error, its grade, its rarity, and its significance, and collectors often pay huge premiums for certified provenance, making the journey of a coin, from discovery to national attention to auction block, part of its mystique and its monetary value. And if a unique, shocking 1977 error emerged and became famous, the bidding war among elite collectors could theoretically push prices to extremes. But while no verified $13 million sale exists for a 1977 penny, the power of the claim highlights the incredible imagination and excitement that circulates around numismatics, reminding us why people still check their pocket change, why collectors dream of discovering a rare gem hidden in an old coffee can, and why the idea of a seemingly ordinary penny transforming into life-changing wealth captures our attention, because the magic of coin collecting lies in the possibility that the next extraordinary find is still out there, waiting in a forgotten drawer, a dusty box, or a random coin roll pulled from the bank. And even though the $13 million figure is not supported by documented auction results, the curiosity surrounding the 1977 no mint mark penny continues to inspire collectors to learn more about errors, understand the minting process, recognize genuine anomalies, and appreciate the astonishing world where tiny metal discs become historical artifacts, artistic expressions, mechanical miracles. Next, 1966 No. Mint mark Lincoln cent that some stories claim has reached a staggering valuation of $21 million, a number so surreal that it instantly commands attention and demands exploration into why such a claim exists. What kinds of minting anomalies could theoretically justify such astronomical figures? And how a coin that millions of Americans might have handled casually in their youth could ever be associated with a price tag that rivals rare art masterpieces and legendary historical artifacts. And to understand this, we need to rewind to the mid-1960s, a turbulent period in American minting history marked by coin shortages, shifts in composition, major design transitions, and an environment within the U.S. Mint that was stressed by intense public demand and production pressures, a perfect storm that can give rise to unusual errors, overlooked mistakes, or undocumented production quirks. And 1966 itself was particularly chaotic due to the suspension of mint marks. From 1965 through 1967, a change implemented in an attempt to discourage coin hoarding during the national shortage, meaning that cents produced in Philadelphia, which traditionally bore no mint mark, were now indistinguishable from those struck in Denver or San Francisco for those years, so the label, "No mint mark," does not itself imply rarity for a 1966 penny. Instead, any rumor of a 1966 penny being worth $21 million must stem not from the absence of a mint mark but from some hypothetical, extraordinary, one-in-a-billion minting error or mechanical anomaly, something so visually dramatic, so historically unique, and so impossible to replicate that elite collectors could justify an enormous bidding war to obtain it. And so we begin to imagine what kinds of extreme minting mistakes could theoretically allow a 1966 cent to command such a price. Starting with the possibility of a transitional composition error, because 1966 fell just 1 year after the mint removed silver from dimes and quarters, and during this era experiments with alternative compositions for multiple denominations were being conducted, meaning that although rare, it is not entirely beyond the realm of possibility that a cent could have been struck on a wrong metal experimental planchet, perhaps an aluminum trial, a foreign contract planchet, or a blank intended for a different denomination entirely. And numismatic history teaches us that such wrong planchet strikes can indeed become legendary, as seen in the few surviving 1974 aluminum cents, the 1943 bronze cent, the 1944 steel cent, or rare proofs struck accidentally on silver blanks. So imagine a 1966 penny mistakenly struck on a silver-clad planchet leftover from experimental testing, weighing significantly less or more than a normal bronze cent, displaying a unique metallic sheen, and confirmed through metallurgical testing by PCGS or NGC to be the only known example in existence, and suddenly we have the makings of a multimillion dollar coin because uniqueness combined with historical mystery drives value more than almost anything else in the numismatic world. Another mind-blowing possibility involves a double denomination strike, where a coin is struck first as, say, a dime or nickel, and then mistakenly fed again into the press and struck a second time with cent dies, creating an unbelievable hybrid that shows traces of two different denominations on a single planchet, a phenomenon that has occurred in other years and has produced some of the most valuable error coins known. So if such a double denomination error occurred in 1966, particularly during an era of high pressure and high production volume at the mint, and if the resulting coin clearly displayed both Lincoln's portrait and elements of another denomination such as the torch and branches from a Roosevelt dime or Monticello from a Jefferson nickel, then collectors might consider it a once-in-a-generation masterpiece worth fighting over with prices skyrocketing into the tens of millions. Yet another theoretical explanation for a $21 million valuation could involve a meal error, where the obverse die meant for a 1966 cent was accidentally paired with a reverse die for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, because the U.S. Mint was actively producing foreign coinage during the 1960s, meaning that die mix-ups, while extremely rare, were not impossible, and a mule error is one of the rarest types of mistakes the mint can produce. With existing examples like the Sacagawea dollar, Washington quarter mule fetching enormous sums at auction, So a 1966 cent struck with a mismatched reverse, say, a reverse intended for a foreign 5-centavo piece or another contracted denomination, would be absolutely unprecedented and could reach mythical value. Another dramatic possibility is an extreme double strike with rotation, where the coin was struck twice or even 3 times with misalignment so profound that 2 or 3 overlapping portraits of Lincoln appear, each rotated at a different angle, with multiple dates, doubled lettering, and distorted features that turn the coin into a numismatic spectacle. And coins like this, especially if the strikes are crisp and dramatic, are extremely valuable because they are visually stunning and immediately recognizable as errors even to casual observers, making them desirable trophies for elite collectors. And of course, we cannot ignore the possibility of major die clamps strike throughs, broad strikes, or saddle strikes so dramatic that the coin's appearance becomes unique among all known 1966 cents, because dramatic visuals equal dramatic value, particularly when the error is well preserved and discovered decades later in exceptional condition, leading top graders to assign high mint state values that push the coin even higher into the realm of luxury collectibles. But beyond these hypothetical scenarios lies another truth, which is that the rumor of a 1966 penny selling for $21 million may stem from the same kind of viral misinformation and exaggerated storytelling that creates overnight legends in the coin collecting world, stories that spread quickly because they tap into our innate desire to imagine that a forgotten penny in our pocket could secretly be worth more than a mansion, a sports car, or even a lifetime of earnings. And while these viral claims rarely reflect actual auction records, they do highlight something fundamental about coin collecting: the thrill of possibility, the enchantment of hidden value, and the enduring belief that somewhere out there a rare error coin remains undiscovered, sitting quietly in a shoebox, waiting for the right pair of eyes to notice it. And so the legend of the 1966 no-mint mark penny valued at $21 million persists not because it has been verified, but because it represents the dream at the heart of numismatics, the belief that even the most ordinary object can contain extraordinary secrets, that minting machines sometimes produce miracles, and that history occasionally slips through the cracks in ways that defy expectation, inviting us to keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that maybe, just maybe, the next unbelievable discovery is still out there. Next, 1973 mint mark D1 cent USA coin. Moving forward in our exploration of the most astonishing penny legends and extreme value error scenarios that continue to fascinate collectors around the world, we now turn our attention to the extraordinary rumors surrounding the 1973 mint mark D Lincoln cent, another coin that certain viral claims have elevated to mythical status by suggesting it could be worth an incredible $13 million, a price so far beyond ordinary numismatic valuations that it immediately captures the imagination and compels us to dig deeper into what kinds of minting anomalies, theoretical mistakes, or unprecedented mechanical failures could possibly give rise to such a valuation, especially for a 1973 D penny, one of the most common years of copper cents struck at the Denver Mint, with over 3.5 billion coins produced, each bearing the familiar D mint mark on the obverse, beneath the date, during a period when the mint's machinery was operating at immense capacity to meet national demand. And yet, as history has repeatedly shown, even among billions of coins, extraordinary outliers sometimes emerge, and it is these anomalies, unique, dramatic, visually stunning, or historically impossible, that fueled the numismatic world's most legendary discoveries. And so to imagine the 1973 D penny reaching a valuation of $13 million, we must explore the most extreme theoretical possibilities, beginning with one of the most sought after and valuable error types: wrong planchet strikes, especially those involving silver, nickel, experimental alloys, or foreign coin planchets, because the U.S. Mint was indeed producing coinage for other countries during the early 1970s, and foreign planchets sometimes mixed accidentally with domestic blanks, leading to rare off-metal errors that can fetch astronomical prices. So imagine a 1973 D cent mistakenly struck on a foreign silver planchet, or perhaps a planchet of nickel, brass, or aluminum intended for another nation's coinage, resulting in a piece with a dramatically different weight, sound, color, and metallic structure, and once analyzed and authenticated by experts, such a coin could be considered unique in the world, a one-of-one numismatic phenomenon capable of attracting multi-million-dollar bidding from elite collectors who value rarity above all else. But another astonishing scenario involves a double-denomination strike, considered one of the most spectacular and valuable categories of mint errors, where a planchet is struck first as one denomination, say, a dime, nickel, or even a quarter, and then inadvertently fed back into the press and struck again with 1973 decent dies, creating a coin with design elements of two different denominations overlapping in a dramatic, visually shocking hybrid that instantly signals to even a novice that the piece is an extraordinary mint mistake, and genuine double-denomination errors from other years have commanded massive premiums in the marketplace, even exceeding six figures. So a perfectly preserved 1973 decent struck over, for example, a Roosevelt dime or a Jefferson nickel, with visible traces of both portraits and both sets of inscriptions, could theoretically reach astronomical prices if confirmed to be unique, making a $13 million scenario conceivable in the most extreme and sensational cases. But perhaps the rarest and most coveted error of all, the mule error, could be the secret behind such a valuation, because a mule occurs when the obverse die of one coin is paired with the reverse die of another denomination, and while mule errors are exceedingly rare in U.S. coinage, the few known examples, such as the Sacagawea dollar paired with a Washington quarter reverse, have become cornerstones of numismatic legends, selling for huge sums and generating intense collector hysteria. So imagine if in 1973 the Denver Mint accidentally paired a Lincoln cent obverse die with the reverse die of a Roosevelt dime, or even a foreign coin being struck during the same production cycle, and imagine further that such a mule error escaped detection and entered circulation, only to be discovered decades later in pristine condition, instantly making it one of the greatest error coins ever found, a coin with a story so extraordinary that the collector world would erupt in a bidding war capable of pushing the piece into the tens of millions. And if not a mule error, then consider an extreme multiple strike with rotation and misalignment so dramatic that the coin displays 2 or 3 full impressions of Lincoln's portrait, each offset at different angles, overlapping dates, distorted lettering, doubled rims, and striking patterns so rare that even veteran graders would consider it a once-in-a-lifetime mechanical accident, because the Denver Mint's high-speed presses occasionally experienced feed malfunctions, die bounce, or ejection failures that could, though incredibly rarely, produce spectacular multi-strike coins, and if such a coin from 1973D were discovered in gem mint condition, meaning the error occurred early in the die's life before serious wear, its uniqueness could justify an enormous valuation. Another theoretical avenue involves a transitional composition error, where a coin is struck using the wrong metal during periods when the mint was experimenting with alternative penny compositions. As the early 1970s were filled with discussions about rising copper prices and the feasibility of replacing the bronze cent with cheaper materials, leading the mint to conduct internal tests, and if any experimental planchet, aluminum, zinc-based, or foreign alloy, accidentally made its way into the Denver production line for circulation strikes, the resulting coin would be historically priceless, particularly if it were the only surviving specimen, and beyond metal or strike mistakes. There exist even more exotic possibilities such as massive die caps that form when a struck coin sticks to a die and continues to receive dozens of impressions, turning into a strange, blister-shaped cap with stretched metal and ghostly design outlines, or coins struck through foreign objects such as tools, cloth, wires, washers, or even other coins, creating dramatic negative impressions that make the piece a captivating conversation starter. Errors that, when extreme, can become highly desirable to advanced collectors. But the $13 million legend around the 1973 D penny also reflects a broader cultural phenomenon in the coin collecting world, where extraordinary values inspire everyday people to inspect their change, search through childhood collections, and imagine that life-changing wealth might be hiding in plain sight. And while no verified auction data supports the notion of a 1973 D cent selling for $13 million, the rumor persists because people love stories where a humble, ordinary coin transforms into a rare treasure through sheer accident, reminding us of the unpredictable magic of minting machines and the astonishing ways history can imprint itself onto small pieces of metal, creating artifacts that bridge mechanical mishap, national heritage, and the thrill of discovery, proving that even a penny, especially one with the right combination of mystery, rarity, and error, can inspire dreams of unimaginable value and keep collectors searching, learning, and hoping for that once-in-a-lifetime find that changes everything. Next, 1979 No. Mint Lincoln. Now, as we continue unfolding the astonishing sagas of legendary pennies that have captured imaginations, fueled treasure-hunting dreams, and sent collectors diving into jars of old change with renewed hope, we arrive at yet another sensational claim circulating through numismatic communities, social media channels, and viral videos. The idea that a 1979 No. Mint Lincoln cent has sold for or could be worth an unbelievable $12 million, a number so staggering that it demands a closer examination of what might theoretically justify such an extraordinary valuation, because while billions of 1979 pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, none of which carried a mint mark due to the long-standing tradition that Philly cents remained unmarked, the mere absence of a mint mark itself does not imply rarity. Instead, such claims inevitably hinge on the possibility of dramatic, unprecedented, incredibly rare minting errors that transform an otherwise ordinary bronze cent into a piece so unique that elite collectors would compete fiercely for the chance to own it, and in the case of a 1979 penny, we must immerse ourselves in the world of hypothetical but numismatically plausible errors that could push a coin's value into the multimillion-dollar realm, starting with one of the most coveted categories, wrong planchet errors. Because the late 1970s were an era when the U.S. Mint was continually adjusting machinery, experimenting with production efficiencies, and striking coins for foreign governments, increasing the chances, however small, of planchet mix-ups, and indeed documented cases exist of U.S. cents struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, and foreign blanks, so it is theoretically possible that a 1979 cent could have been struck on an off-metal planchet made of silver, nickel brass, aluminum, or even steel, each composition resulting in a different weight, ring, and appearance, and if a one-of-a-kind 1979 off-metal error were authenticated by PCGS or NGC with a high grade, it could garner enormous collector demand, particularly if the metal composition is rare or historically significant. But the realm of possibilities extends far beyond metal alone, because another category of ultra-rare and highly valuable errors is the double denomination strike, where a coin is struck first as one denomination and then struck again with the dies of another, creating dramatic overlapping designs that are instantly recognizable as minting miracles, and examples like cents struck over Roosevelt dimes or Jefferson nickels exist from other years, proving that such mechanical malfunctions, while spectacularly rare, are not impossible. So imagine a 1979 penny struck over a dime planchet, with faint traces of Roosevelt's profile behind Lincoln's portrait, or the torch and oak branches emerging beneath the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. And if such a coin were unique, well-preserved, and dramatically visible, its value could skyrocket far beyond normal expectations. And then, of course, we must consider the possibility of a mule error, one of the most valuable categories in all of numismatics, created when mismatched obverse and reverse dies, never intended to be paired, strike a single coin, and while mule errors are almost unbelievably rare, the known examples in U.S. history have fetched astounding prices due to their rarity and historical mystery. So if a 1979 cent were ever discovered, with a reverse intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin being produced at the Philadelphia Mint that year, collectors would immediately recognize it as a numismatic holy grail, a one-in-a-billion accident capable of igniting a bidding war reaching into the millions. But beyond dramatic mismatched dies, consider the potential of an extreme multiple strike, where a coin is struck 2, 3, or even 4 times due to a malfunction in the ejection system, each strike at a different angle or orientation, creating ghostly portraits of Lincoln layered over one another, duplicated dates, distorted rims, and overlapping inscriptions that form a visual spectacle unlike anything seen in typical error coins. And such dramatic multiple strike errors, especially in near-perfect mint state condition, are known to set records and captivate collectors who seek only the rarest, most eye-catching anomalies. Or envision a massive die cap error, where a struck coin adheres to the die and continues being struck over and over, shaping into a bizarre cupped structure with deeply distorted impressions that make the piece look more like an alien artifact than a penny. And such errors, if large, perfectly preserved, and from a year like 1979 where billions were made, could create a truly one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure capable of attracting enormous interest. But the possibilities extend even further, such as coins with dramatic broad strikes caused by missing collars, saddle strikes created by feeder malfunctions, or strike-through errors where foreign objects like washers, tools, loose metal fragments, or even another coin obstructed the dies, creating intricate depressions and unusual patterns that elevate the coin from a curiosity to a showpiece worthy of top-tier collectors. And yet the legend of a 1979 penny being worth $12 million also arises not only from theoretical minting anomalies, but from the powerful human fascination with the idea that unimaginable value can hide in plain sight, because the magic of the coin collecting world lies in the belief that sometimes a tiny piece of metal, something so ordinary that millions of people have handled it without a second thought, may contain the rare fingerprint of history, an accident, a mechanical hiccup, a moment of minting chaos frozen forever in copper. And the idea that such an object might completely change someone's life with a single discovery fuels endless searching, endless questioning, and endless storytelling. And while no documented sale confirms a 1979 penny reaching a $12 million valuation, the viral story persists because people love the dream of discovering an impossible treasure, a miracle born out of the mint's rarest mistakes. And so the legend continues to spread, encouraging collectors old and new to study mint errors, weigh their coins carefully, examine surfaces closely, and learn the incredible range of anomalies that truly can raise a coin's value. From 1 cent to a fortune, keeping alive the thrill, excitement, and hope that the next extraordinary, history-making discovery is still waiting out there, hidden in a forgotten drawer or a dusty jar, ready to astonish the world when the right set of eyes finally recognizes its secret. Next, 1980 mint mark Lincoln cent. As we journey further into the extraordinary landscape of rare penny legends and jaw-dropping numismatic myths that continue to spark curiosity, ignite treasure hunts, and fan the flames of possibility among collectors worldwide, we now arrive at yet another unbelievable claim, one that has circulated through viral posts, breathless videos, and whispered discussions among hopeful coin searchers, the captivating notion that a 1980 mint mark Lincoln cent has reached or could reach a valuation as high as $9 million, a figure that immediately challenges logic and demands serious exploration into what kinds of minting anomalies, mechanical accidents, or historically improbable errors could ever justify such a monumental price. And to understand this, we must place ourselves within the context of 1980, a year when the Philadelphia Mint struck more than 7 billion pennies, each one bearing no mint mark as was standard practice for Philadelphia issues, meaning that simple absence of a mint mark is not what drives the legend. Instead, any suggestion of a $9 million valuation rests entirely on the possibility of an extraordinarily rare, visually stunning, mechanically improbable error that could turn an otherwise common copper-plated zinc cent, since the copper-zinc transition was beginning to be tested in this era, into a numismatic miracle, and one of the first categories of errors that could potentially elevate a coin to such heights as the wrong planchet strike, because the late 1970s and early 1980s were a period of significant experimentation and transition at the mint as rising metal costs forced planners to consider cheaper alternatives and test new alloys, meaning that while the fully copper-plated zinc cents officially debuted in 1982, there were discussions and preliminary preparations long before that. So the theoretical existence of a 1980 cent struck on an early experimental zinc planchet, an aluminum test piece, a brass foreign blank, or even a leftover silver-nickel planchet accidentally fed into cent presses could create a piece so unique and historically significant that advanced collectors might consider it priceless, especially if metallurgical analysis confirmed it as the only known surviving example, and if the era combined rarity with exceptional eye appeal and high grade. A multimillion-dollar bidding war would not be unthinkable, But wrong planchet errors are only the beginning, because the realm of double denomination strikes offers some of the most visually dramatic and highly prized errors ever produced by the U.S. Mint, and if a 1980 penny were struck over a previously minted Roosevelt dime or Jefferson nickel, leaving behind unmistakable traces of the earlier design visible under the cents imagery, the resulting hybrid would instantly become one of the most compelling error coins of the era, especially if the strike was bold, the overlapping elements crisp, and the metal composition unconventional, and such a piece, if unique, could theoretically escalate to values that defy expectation, and even beyond double denomination errors lies the near mythical category of meal errors, where the obverse die of one coin is paired with the reverse die of another, creating a combination never intended by the mint. And while mule errors from the cent series are nearly unheard of, the U.S. Mint's history includes enough unexpected mishaps, such as the famed Sacagawea dollar, Washington quarter mule, to remind collectors that even the most implausible mistakes can slip through the cracks, and if, for example, a 1980 Lincoln cent obverse were paired with the reverse of a foreign coin being produced in Philadelphia at that time, or even with a reverse intended for a domestic denomination, the resulting piece would be an unprecedented discovery. A once-in-a-generation error capable of commanding astronomical prices and instantly rewriting numismatic history. But the extraordinary scenarios do not end there, because another class of errors that can make collectors' hearts race includes major multi-strike or rotational errors, where a coin is struck multiple times because of ejection failure, feeder malfunctions, or mechanical timing errors, and each strike lands at a different orientation or partial overlap, creating multiple visible profiles of Lincoln, doubled legends, rotated dates, thickened rims, distorted edges, and dramatic ghost images that turn the coin into a visual masterpiece of minting chaos. And such extreme multi-strike errors, especially when perfectly preserved in mint state, potentially pulled off the line before circulation, are known to be extremely valuable due to their rarity and undeniable eye appeal, and still more possibilities exist, such as a massive die cap error forming when a struck coin sticks to the die and becomes a soft metal hammer that receives repeated impressions, expanding, stretching, and curling into a bizarre domed cap with deeply distorted images, a spectacle of minting failure that collectors often consider priceless when preserved in full form. And if a perfectly formed, early-stage die cap from 1980 displaying crisp Lincoln features ever surfaced and proved to be unique, it could attract staggering prices in the elite collector market. Additionally, we must consider dramatic broad strikes produced when the collar dies fail, creating oversized, off-center, or stretched pennies that look unlike anything typically seen, as well as saddle strikes caused by feeder mechanism failures, and severe strike-throughs where foreign objects, bits of cloth, metal shavings, washers, broken die fragments, or even another coin, interfere with the strike, leaving behind fascinating patterns, recesses, or artifacts embedded in the coin's surface, all of which, if extreme and unique, could ignite collector frenzy. But beyond the hypothetical minting errors that could justify such value, the viral legend of the 1980 penny worth $9 million also speaks to the enduring human fascination with hidden treasure, the irresistible allure of the idea that somewhere in everyday pocket change lies an object whose value transcends its humble design, a tiny copper coin that could rewrite someone's financial reality. And these stories flourish precisely because they tap into the mystery and unpredictability of mint machinery. Because people know that mistakes do happen, miracles do slip through, and history sometimes hides itself in the most ordinary places. And though no official record or authenticated sale supports a $9 million valuation for a 1980 mintmark penny, the myth continues to captivate collectors, inspire dreamers, and keep the numismatic world alive with hope, reminding us that the fun, the excitement, and the heart of coin collecting lies in possibility. The possibility that a forgotten coin in an old box, a jar in a kitchen cabinet, or a handful of change from a store could contain a rare masterpiece born from a fleeting moment of minting imperfection that transforms an everyday object into a treasure of staggering value. Next, 2020 D. Lincoln Cent. As our exploration of extraordinary penny legends marches forward into the modern era, we arrive at a coin that, despite having been minted only a short time ago, has already sparked viral debates, sensational headlines, and dream-fueled speculation. The 2020 D Lincoln Cent, a coin produced in the tens of millions at the Denver Mint, yet somehow caught up in the ever-expanding universe of claims suggesting that a rare era version could be worth as much as $1 million. A figure that at first seems wildly disproportionate for such a recent issue but becomes more compelling when we consider the extraordinary circumstances surrounding 2020 itself, a year defined by global disruption, shifts in mint production priorities, unexpected mechanical strains, staffing challenges, and coin circulation shortages that together created a perfect storm for unusual minting conditions, making the possibility of rare and dramatic errors far more plausible than in calmer years. And within this chaotic backdrop, the legend of $1 million 2020 D Cent begins to unfold, resting on the idea that a unique or visually spectacular mint error from this troubled period might not only exist but could, in theory, command astronomical value if authenticated, properly graded, and confirmed to be the only one of its kind. And when examining what specific anomalies could propel a common 2020 D penny into the realm of numismatic mythology, we must begin with wrong planchet errors, because although cents today are struck on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, the unprecedented disruptions of 2020 led to irregularities across multiple mint facilities, meaning a small batch of leftover foreign coin planchets, blank dime stock, nickel blends, or rejected experimental materials could have been mistakenly introduced into Denver presses. And a 2020 D Cent struck on a dime planchet, silvery in color, slightly undersized, and bearing an off-center design, would instantly stand out as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery capable of fueling a bidding war among advanced collectors, especially if the strike were sharp, the surfaces pristine, and the planchet confirmed through metallurgical testing, while an even more astonishing possibility, though undocumented, would be a 2020 D Cent accidentally struck on a leftover copper planchet from earlier experiments, or on a foreign bronze blank, a combination so historically intriguing that its market value could rise unpredictably with no clear ceiling. Yet wrong planchet errors represent only the first layer of mystery, because 2020's production stress also increased the likelihood of dramatic double-denomination errors, in which a coin already bearing the design of one denomination is struck again with cent dies, resulting in an overlapping masterpiece of mismatched imagery. Roosevelt's portrait ghosting beneath Lincoln's, or the 5-cent Monticello structure emerging beneath the Union Shield reverse, creating a visually stunning hybrid unlike anything produced deliberately by the mint, and such errors, if bold and unique, can achieve staggering valuations due to their rarity, aesthetic shock value, and the sheer improbability of their creation. But beyond these remarkable hybrid mistakes lies the possibility of a modern meal error, and although meals are exceptionally rare, the turmoil and rush schedules of 2020 make the concept no longer purely hypothetical, because if even one pair of mismatched dies, perhaps a cent obverse and a nickel reverse, or a cent reverse paired with an unused die from a foreign contract, were accidentally mounted together during the year's chaotic production cycle, the resulting coin would instantly become one of the most important U.S. mint errors ever discovered, a numismatic headline waiting to happen, and in such a case, $1 million sale would not be an exaggeration but a realistic outcome driven by fierce international competition among elite collectors. And still, these possibilities only scratch the surface of what error specialists consider the holy grail tier of modern production failures, because multi-strike errors remain among the most visually breathtaking mishaps that can escape quality control, particularly when a coin becomes jammed between misaligned dies and receives 2, 3, or even 4 overlapping strikes at different rotations, creating a jaw-dropping display of repeated dates, doubled profiles, stretched rims, and surrealistic distortions that transform a simple 1-cent coin into a metallic mosaic of minting chaos, the sort of error that would not only command enormous attention online but would also become an instant centerpiece in any advanced error collection. And equally dramatic are off-metal saddle strikes, broad strikes caused by failed collars, brockage formed when one coin impresses its own image into another, and deep strike-through errors where bits of machinery, wire, cloth, or metal fragments become embedded into the coin during striking, leaving behind irregular cavities, raised textures, or ghostly impressions that turn the coin into a three-dimensional record of a moment of industrial failure, and if such an error occurred during the tumultuous 2020 production year and remained unique, pristine, and visually extreme, its value could easily rise beyond traditional pricing logic, fueled by both historical significance and collector psychology. And, perhaps most intriguing of all is the concept of a perfect early-stage die cap, where a newly struck coin sticks to the upper die and acts like a soft metallic mallet, repeatedly flattening and stretching itself into a tall, flared, cup-shaped formation as it receives strike after strike. And if such a die cap were created in 2020 and escaped the mint without being crushed or discarded, retaining crisp design elements inside the domed interior, its status as a modern minting marvel would be unquestionable, and its value could indeed climb into the 6- or 7-figure range, driven by its uniqueness and the fact that die caps from high-speed modern presses rarely survive intact. But beyond the catalog of dramatic errors that could justify a $1 million price tag, the legend of the 2020 $1 million penny also reflects something deeper about the culture of collecting in the digital age. Because 2020 marked a turning point not only for global events but also for online communities, with millions of people stuck at home rediscovering old hobbies, searching coin jars, watching viral videos about era coins, and fueling a wave of numismatic excitement unprecedented in recent memory, giving rise to an environment where rumors spread rapidly, where the possibility of hidden treasure and pocket change rekindled optimism during uncertain times, and where extraordinary claims, even those lacking documented examples, took on a life of their own, inspiring collectors and dreamers alike to look more closely at each penny they handled, imagining that the next viral sensation, the next record-shattering auction piece, the next $1 million modern era might be sitting quietly among ordinary coins, and ultimately, whether or not a $1 million 2020 D penny has ever been confirmed, the enduring myth demonstrates the same phenomenon we've seen throughout this entire exploration. The irresistible human attraction to rarity, mystery, and hidden value, the hope that extraordinary moments occur not only in the distant past but also in the present day, and the belief that even in the most modern, automated, mass-produced coinage, there remains a small but thrilling possibility that a spectacular mistake, a unique anomaly, or a once-in-history minting accident could transform a humble cent into a treasure of legendary worth. Next, 1855 no-mint Mark 1 cent coin. Now, moving deeper into the timeline of America's earliest coinage myths, we reach one of the most astonishing claims ever whispered in numismatic folklore: the idea that an 1855 no-mint Mark 1 cent coin, a relic from the era of large copper cents and the final years before one of the most important transitions in U.S. mint history, could possess a theoretical face value of $23 million if it were to surface with the right combination of errors, anomalies, provenance mysteries, and historically impossible characteristics, making it not merely valuable but a once-in-civilization discovery that collectors, museums, and private institutions would fight over with unimaginable intensity. Because 1855 stands at a dramatic crossroads of American coinage when the mint was struggling with rising copper prices, political tensions, technological limitations, and the impending redesign that would replace the gigantic copper large cent with the smaller Flying Eagle cent, leaving behind a period of chaos, experimentation, and rushed production that dramatically increased the likelihood of unusual die states, metal impurities, experimental compositions, transitional clashes, die swaps, mismatched hubs, and undocumented test strikes, all of which feed into the legend that somewhere, hidden away in a forgotten estate collection or buried in an old trunk, there could exist a single example of an 1855 cent so remarkable, so shockingly impossible, and so historically disruptive that its theoretical value could soar into the tens of millions. And to understand why such an extraordinary price tag is even imaginable, we must examine the specific errors and anomalies that experts speculate might justify such value, starting with the possibility of a transitional mule error. Because in 1855 the mint was preparing dies for the upcoming Flying Eagle cent while simultaneously striking the final braided hair large cents, and if a mint worker mistakenly paired an 1855 large cent obverse die with a prototype Flying Eagle reverse die or even an early shield or wreath concept reverse, the resulting coin would instantly become the most historically important mule in U.S. history, a transitional hybrid bridging two eras in a way never documented, and since only a single such coin would ever realistically have escaped detection, its rarity would transcend even the legendary 1913 Liberty nickel, placing it in a league where eight-figure valuations are entirely possible. But beyond mules, another category of theoretical errors involves wrong planchet strikes, and while large cents were supposed to be struck on thick copper planchets weighing around 10.89 grams, the mint at the time was experimenting with new alloys, small cent prototypes, foreign coin contracts, and even nickel-copper blends long before the public knew such materials were being tested. So an 1855 large cent struck, accidentally or experimentally, on a lightweight alloy, a debased copper sheet, a foreign blank, or an early small cent blank would instantly become a world-altering discovery, especially if metallurgical testing confirmed a composition never before recorded in mint archives, making the coin not simply rare but historically explosive, capable of shattering prior assumptions about mid-19th century mint experimentation. And then there are the extreme die state anomalies, because by 1855 most of the large cent dies were overused, cracked, heavily clashed, and suffering from erosion, and while most examples show minor cracks or clash lines, the mythical million-tier error would require something dramatically beyond the norm, a die so shattered that the resulting coin displays massive retained cuds, deep crater-like voids, collapsed rims, doubled profiles caused by loose die seating, and ghost-like reversed images of the wreath or Liberty portrait deeply imprinted from repeated die-to-die clashes, creating a coin that looks like a topographical map of mint destruction and offering a visual spectacle unlike anything found in ordinary die deterioration. And while this alone would produce a valuable piece, the mythical $23 million version would require a combination of multiple extraordinary events, perhaps a gigantic retained die break on the obverse, multiple misaligned hub impressions creating tripled or quadrupled details on Liberty's face, a reverse design shifted dramatically off-center and rotated 90 degrees, and an early-stage broad strike where the coin was struck outside the collar and expanded irregularly, leaving it oversized, distorted, and marked by ridges and folds caused by metal flowing unpredictably under immense pressure. But the legend becomes even richer when we consider the possibility of a die-cap catastrophe from the era, where the first coin sticks to the upper die and forms a tall cup-shaped structure after dozens of impacts, and if an 1855 die cap somehow survived long enough to produce multiple mushroom-shaped large cents or even created a spectacular blockage on another coin, the resulting overlapping, concave, mirrored designs would be numismatic artwork produced entirely by accident. And if such a die cap were preserved in near-perfect condition, it would be regarded as one of the greatest minting accidents in U.S. history, capable of commanding a price that defies ordinary auction expectations. And then there is the alluring possibility of an 1855 large cent with a full reverse blockage paired with a doubled obverse showing both die clash marks and rotated strike elements, a coin so layered with minting anomalies that experts would call it an impossible fusion of competing production errors, the kind of specimen that advanced collectors would pay fortunes to obtain because it embodies multiple minting catastrophes occurring simultaneously. An outcome so improbable that it would elevate the coin to mythic stature, and yet the mysteries surrounding 1855 stretch even further, because the mint at the time occasionally reused old dies, repunched dates, altered numerals, and quietly experimented with updated design elements without recording their tests in official logs, creating the tantalizing possibility that a single 1855 large cent might exist bearing an undocumented date style, a transitional numeral punch, or a secret early version of a wreath or Liberty portrait that has never appeared in any mint archive, and such a discovery would not only rewrite numismatic history but could ignite multimillion-dollar bidding wars among museums and private collectors alike. And another layer of intrigue involves the possibility of an 1855 overdate error, perhaps 1855/1854 or even 1855 over an inverted 5, which would not be impossible given 19th century die punching methods. And if such an overdate also coincided with a major die crack, off-metal composition, or mule reverse, its value would multiply dramatically, pushing it higher and higher into the realm of mythic valuation, and beyond all technical errors. What truly amplifies the legend of a $23 million 1855 cent is the romantic idea of provenance. The possibility that such a coin might have once belonged to early mint employees, collectors of the 19th century, Civil War generals, American industrial tycoons, or even secretive European royalty, and provenance alone has been known to multiply the value of rare coins, particularly when the piece in question is already technically extraordinary. And because no definitive example of such a coin has ever surfaced, the myth persists in a tantalizing unresolved state, feeding endless curiosity among collectors who imagine that somewhere, perhaps in an attic, a safe, a forgotten coin album, or a locked bank box, an impossible 1855-era coin may still be waiting to emerge. A coin that would ignite headlines, trigger global bidding wars, and become one of the most iconic numismatic discoveries ever made. And this lingering possibility, combined with the dramatic historical context of pre-Civil War minting practices, technological instability, political tension, and the looming transition to smaller cents, creates a perfect environment for myth-making, giving rise to the legendary $23 million valuation. A symbolic number representing the idea that coins are not merely metal objects but historical witnesses whose rare mistakes have the power to transcend time, economics, and logic itself, becoming treasures of extraordinary cultural weight that capture the imagination of generations and remind us that even the smallest artifact, when shaped by accident and preserved by fate, can achieve a value beyond calculation. Next, 1967 No Mint Mark 1 cent coin, a piece born in a turbulent moment of American coinage history, a year when the mint temporarily removed mint marks from all coins due to widespread hoarding, production pressure, and growing public panic surrounding the disappearance of silver from circulating coinage, creating a rare environment where mistakes, rushed processes, experimental procedures, and subtle anomalies became far more likely to slip past inspection. And it is in this volatile environment that the myth of an $18 million 1967 cent takes root, fueled by speculation that one or more coins from that year may have escaped with errors so extreme, so visually stunning, and so historically improbable that their theoretical value skyrockets into mythic ranges, because 1967 stands at the intersection of multiple coinage issues. The aftermath of the 1965 Coinage Act, the removal of mint marks, the constant switching of planchet supplies, the transition to new equipment, and the mint's desperate struggle to keep up with demand, all factors that dramatically increased the likelihood of unusual minting anomalies, making the 1967 cent an ideal candidate in numismatic legend for the possibility of a once-in-history era that could justify the staggering $18 million valuation whispered among collectors. And to understand why such a value is even imaginable, one must explore the rarest, most dramatic, and theoretically possible types of errors the mint could have produced in this high-pressure year, beginning with the possibility of a wrong planchet strike, because despite the modernization efforts of the era, mistakes still happened, and the 1967 mint handled millions of planchets in rapid succession for multiple denominations, meaning that an experimental foreign contract blank, an off-metal composition, or a leftover planchet from another denomination could have found its way into the cent chamber, creating a 1967 cent struck, perhaps on a dime planchet, giving it a silver appearance and a slightly smaller size, or even more astonishingly on a nickel blend planchet, creating a heavier, harder, off-color cent with razor-sharp details and incorrect weight. And if such a coin existed in perfect condition, with confirmed metallurgical anomalies, it would draw the attention of elite collectors willing to pay extraordinary sums for a unique piece from a major transitional era. Yet wrong planchet errors are only the beginning, because 1967 was also a year ripe for multi-strike and double-denomination errors due to worn equipment, rushed die changes, and overworked staff, and the possibility that a 1967 cent could have been struck first as a dime, and then again as a cent, producing overlapping, mismatched imagery with Roosevelt's silhouette ghosted beneath Lincoln's. creates a hybrid masterpiece so improbable that its uniqueness alone could elevate its value into the highest numismatic tiers, especially if the strike was sharp, centered, and visually dramatic, embodying a perfect storm of minting chaos preserved forever in copper. But even beyond these already astonishing mistakes lies the elusive and legendary meal error, a coin struck using mismatched dies from different denominations, and while no confirmed meal exists for 1967 cents. The removal of mint marks that year created confusion in die storage and identification, increasing the theoretical possibility that a cent obverse could have been mistakenly paired with a nickel reverse die, or even more fantastically with a foreign contract reverse die from the same period, and a mule of this magnitude would be unprecedented, instantly becoming one of the most valuable mint errors in American coinage history, easily commanding multi-million-dollar offers from collectors and museums. And if the mythical $18 million 1967 cent truly exists in legend, many believe it would require not just a single error but a cascading combination of multiple dramatic anomalies, a triple strike with different die rotations, a saddle strike formed when the planchet was bent upon entry, a broad strike resulting from collar failure, a deep strike through caused by foreign debris lodged in the dies, and perhaps even a retained interior cut caused by a catastrophic die crack splitting the coin's surface into jagged yet beautiful patterns, each element adding complexity, visual intrigue, and historical weight that pushes the coin further into the realm of numismatic divinity. Yet perhaps the most fascinating possibility connected to the 1967 cent involves the little discussed fact that the mint was quietly experimenting with new die polishing techniques, revised master hub impressions, and subtle design modifications during the mint mark omission years, meaning that one could theoretically discover a 1967 cent with an undocumented hub doubling on Lincoln's profile or lettering, a rare variation in the shape of the bust, or a transitional remnant of a pre-1965 design element accidentally carried over to the die, creating not just a mint error but a unique transitional variety of enormous historical importance, especially if accompanied by other mechanical anomalies. And another layer of intrigue arises from the possibility of a full blockage error, where one coin becomes stuck to a die and impresses its inverted design into another coin, producing a mirror image effect of breathtaking clarity. And if such a blockage occurred on a perfectly centered 1967 cent with strong relief and no later damage, it could be regarded as one of the most visually perfect mint errors of the decade, easily reaching seven-figure valuations among elite collectors. Yet what truly elevates the mythical $18 million figure is not just mechanical error potential, but historical context. Because 1967 marked the second year of the mint's crisis-driven overhaul, a period when old dies were reused, numbers were repunched, and records were inconsistently kept, creating the tantalizing possibility that a small batch of experimental strikes using alternative copper alloys, different rim profiles, or modified reliefs could have been produced and quietly released into circulation, never recorded, never tracked, and never expected to survive long enough to be discovered by future generations. And if even one such coin existed with an anomalous weight, composition, or design style matching no other known 1967 cent, its historical impact would be profound. And added to this is the always enthralling possibility of provenance, because if such a legendary era coin were ever found in an old estate belonging to a mint employee, an engraver, or a member of a politically influential family of the era, its value would multiply dramatically. As collectors are always drawn to coins with direct links to insider access, secret experimentation, or private collections shielded from the public for decades. And all of these layers, mechanical chaos, transitional experimentation, missing mint marks, rushed production, poor record keeping, and the deep cultural fascination with era coins, combined to create the mythic aura surrounding the 1967 cent, a coin that in ordinary form is common and inexpensive, yet in its imagined rarest form becomes a symbol of hidden treasure. Of the idea that even in a modernizing minting era, extraordinary accidents could occur, slip past inspection, survive against all odds, and emerge decades later as miraculous survivors capable of commanding valuations not just in the thousands or millions but in the tens of millions, fueling the legend of the $18 million 1967 no-mint mark penny and proving once again that the smallest coin can carry the largest dreams when history, mystery, rarity, and imagination intertwine.